Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Sorting Soup. I am your flight attendant this evening, and I am telling you that we are live streaming currently. So if you do not want your faces on YouTube, right now is the time to turn off your screen, your video. So, hi, hey, and hello, Ms. Ori and Ms. Linda and J.A. and Brooke and C and Christine and Maria and Garrick and Chris and Matthew. And I don't know who that is. It's just a phone number, but maybe we'll see later. Hi, Miss Susan and Joe. Janet. Hi, everybody. Miss Cheryl. Guys, hi, Miss Karen. Hey, Bruce. I'm so happy to see y'all. I'm so happy to see everybody. And the reason I say all of your names every time I see you, first of all, I'm terrible with names. And so when I say your names and I see your faces, it helps me reinforce who in my mind. But second, it just gives me joy. Like, I mean, just this joy that where all of us come from, all over to this one spot. And when I see your names and your faces, or I don't see your faces, just saying your names puts a smile on my face and gives me a little. So anyway, hi everybody. Welcome to Sorting Soup Book Club. I'm sorry I went off on a little tangent there, but it's been kind of an odd weekend. Busy, but not one of those days or weekends when my 21-year-old comes home crying because she did yet another thing to her new car. Um, you know, those kinds of weekends. So, welcome again to our book club. Today we're going to be on chapter 12. This is the penultimate chapter, y'all. We are almost done. We are on the hidden threat, confusion, complexity, and manipulation. And really, this is the final chapter of this book because the 13th chapter is their calls to action, what we can do as organizers and resistors. So this is kind of, I guess, their conclusion chapter. And when we go over it, we had some conclusions ourselves, but we'll go through this a little bit. Let's go to the next slide real quick. All right. So real quick, I'm Cecilia. I'm a co-facilitator here. I don't think we have Miss Beth with us today, but we do have Laura in her place. And we have, I don't know if we have Dr. Melissa, but we have Constance in her place. We have Dr. Chris. And point is, we have a great team today, and we will be facilitating all of your needs.
And
All right.
Dr. Melissa stepped in.
Hey, Dr. Melissa is here. Woohoo! See, she just snuck right in and I
Right.
just didn't see her name. All right. So, how Sundays usually go is we don't reread the entire chapter because we've already done that. And boy, would that be depressing. So, we are going to just pick out a few interesting tidbits and focus on them and really dig into them and start and discuss them. And I really am interested in what y'all thought and what you have been thinking. But before we, again, I'm getting ahead of myself. Next slide. So our group norms. Please do raise your digital hand, and that is the react button at the bottom of the screen. You can send us reactions with that. That's the heart button that says react, or you can raise your hand. We do ask you to keep it civil and constructive. If you perceive a problem, please do pose a solution, and no spamming in the chat. If you have something to say, do say it once or twice, but we get your point. Okay. Also take breaks or step away if you need to. Y'all, this is heavy. It's deep. It's dark. We have learned our lesson. So if you need to take a break, we totally get it. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to start just with just by reading the very first information or the very first
Paragraph.
paragraph. Yeah, very first paragraph. Because, like I said, this is kind of a conclusion. And then I'll get to you straight away, Constance. So, um, sorry, just a moment. Woo, we got stuff going on over. All right. If the previous chapters have described a politics of erosion of institutions, norms, and rights, this chapter addresses a more insidious phenomenon, a politics of deliberate confusion. The decay of democracy under Project 2025 does not rely solely on repression, polarization, or economic extraction. It also relies on a cognitive environment in which truth is fragmented, clarity is rare, and public understanding is constantly destabilized. Misinformation in this framework is not a side effect, it is a core strategy, not merely to deceive, but to disorient. And the more I thought about this, the more I realized that this is a core of their whole idea. Um, they put out a lot of misinformation, and they put out information before they even know what's happening. Look at all of the major like the shootings that have happened. They put it out before they even know what is happening. Constance. Oh, I need you to unmute first, hon.
Yes, absolutely. That's a perfect example. And I also would like to cite something that just happened a few days ago with the tariff decision. You know, the tariff decision is based on the Constitution. It's as clear as day. The Supreme Court didn't even have to go out on a limb to come up with this decision. It was right there in front of them. So what does Trump do? He explodes, he goes off the deep end, he starts threatening with all sorts of other tariffs that nobody knows what he's going to do with. Just adding fuel to the fire, adding confusion to confusion, and or the confusion to the possibility of not having confusion. In a way, the Supreme Court gave him a solid. He could have accepted that and said, okay, it's their decision. We'll have to, do something else. But he didn't because he likes the confusion and the power that goes with it.
Yeah, and I
So,
think I think
mhm,
something that goes on to say speed. Where we're getting a lot of our news is online and social media. The algorithm reflects and it really celebrates speed. So the
mhm.
faster you do something, the more it's going to pump that up. The first person to get a story, that's the one that's going to get, up there. And it doesn't matter if you have the facts, right? I mean, it really
On social
doesn't.
media, it doesn't. Sure. Yeah.
Right, for social
Hmm.
media. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Hmm.
And so they're utilizing that. They're utilizing that to their advantage and just terrorizing the information network. And I think that they learned that on Facebook and they have taken it to every other platform. Bruce,
To the
you're
extremes.
yeah, you're up
Hmm.
next.
Since Constant brought up the tariff decision, um, yeah, it should have been very plain, but it should have been a 9-0 decision, and it wasn't. And I've read, I think it was Joyce Vance who said, "How in the world did they not all, agree on it?" But I'm not positive it was her. It was some article I read. Um, but Kavanaugh, his decision was the roadmap for what Trump did. Now, he didn't say that it would be good by going under that section of the, allowing tariffs, but he did say that was another avenue that could be tried. And he gave two sections, as a matter of fact. And that's apparently what Trump jumped on. Although he started off with only 10%, he then realized, oh, 15% is what you're allowed, so that's what I'm going to go for. in terms of the tariffs under a different section, but it's only good for 150 days, and then by then he has to have had congressional approval, or it ends. And we're wondering, will it end at that time? It should, but we don't know that it will. And yeah, their misinformation. You could give example after example of what they do, and say right away, and it's wrong. And I mean, even with, as Constance pointed out, with those shootings, we have our own eyes to see what happened. January 6th, we had our eyes to see what happened, despite his Trump's claiming it was a day of love or something like that. Well, maybe it was a love of him, but nothing else. I mean, those poor policemen, and look what they did to the Capitol. We all could see it, and they're claiming no, there was no violence or the police started it or whatnot, and that's not what you see. So that's another example where their misinformation is trying to guide us. But I know other parts of the chapter say they don't want us to think. Well, those of us who think realize that that's not what occurred. That's it.
Thank you, Bruce. Dr. Melissa, you're up next.
Hi, thanks. I just wonder who's confused. I mean, sometimes it's confusing, but we usually gather the information. We talk to each other. Who is confused? Yeah.
Where are they getting their information? And what information are they getting?
Right. Fox
That
News and Newsmax and
because
then nowhere.
Because that's the thing. And you can continue after I tell you this. When you get your news solely from Fox, you are in a totally different universe than when you get your news from any other news source. And I mean that literally. Like if you solely watch Fox News, you would miss out on like half of what the rest of us are talking about. And I don't know. What do you do then?
Yeah, it's a totally good answer because so those folks, they won't be confused. They'll be aligned with him because that's alignment. Um, and people in the middle, I mean, I guess a lot of people don't really watch the news that much, especially if they're getting tuned out. So I thought that, maybe Project 2025, our review of it, sort of overestimates the amount of confusion and the amount of apathy. But there probably is a sector that's true for. So I just wonder what percentage, and are we getting past that? Are we getting messages out to people?
I agree. And I find that when I do know your rights education in my area, I find people who are like, I had no idea this was going on. And and that's when I'm like, have you been watching the news? And their first answer, no, I stopped paying attention after the election because I was mentally exhausted. That is the big number one answer I've gotten this whole last year. And I was like, I get it. I do. But my response to them is now more than ever, we need you to re-engage. Even if you just watch something like What a Day by Crooked, that's like a 20-minute podcast that gives you the day's headlines. It's nothing too deep. It just kind of dips, but you're up to, what's happening. We need to get people back like engaged because they yeah. Anyway, Constance. I was about to call you Cameron Constance.
I've got two first names, let's put it that way. Um, yeah, I think that even those who don't pay attention very much are going to see at some point Trump's reaction to the Supreme Court decision and see a man who is really off his rails. He is a lunatic. He was not only uh, stammering and stuttering and around. He was threatening. It was like an evil force was generating from his core and saying, I have the power to kill, to destroy people, destroy countries. I mean, that's Bond villain stuff. And I think people can, I I can see that for being not good,
Yeah.
basically. And his poll numbers, even taken when, they couldn't fully encompass what his response to the tariffs thing had gone down even more. So I think, I'm going to call it a win for us. Um, I'm looking for wins, and I'm going to call that a win for us because he was just so out of his mind, crazy and cruel that I can't see anybody looking at that and not flinching at least, you know. So I'm hopeful actually because of that.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad. Hold
Yeah.
on. I mean, trying to do two things at once. And you know what happens when I do that? Oh, all right. Chris, you're up next.
I'm going to admit that I'm confused. So I'm
Okay.
confused because I live in a world of rules and laws, and I don't understand why our legislature doesn't seem to live in a world of rules and laws. And I'm confused as to why we can't get somebody in there and somebody to take and look at all the money that is spent on elections. So this is all to me, it, it's like nobody's in charge except President Trump, and he can't decide what he wants. I mean, 10% on Friday, 15% tariffs on Saturday, and I didn't read the opinion as saying he could just go do whatever he wanted. I read it as saying you have to go to Congress.
Yeah,
Congress
that's what
is,
I read. I read it as
yeah,
saying,
Article
hey,
1.
did you not read the Constitution? Because we did. I
And
mean,
even I I haven't read the complete. I need to reread it. I need to get out that Constitution thing I have. The other thing is I was watching Robert Reich yesterday morning on his coffee clutch, and he had is it David Hawks on there. And you could see how important it is to get a message out to young people and get them to listen and not listen to the disinformation. And they might, I have to ask at the gym. They must think he's crazy. For the most part, I think people have, as was said, checked out because you just can't absorb all of this.
and let me tell you something. When they check back in, and the only people who are talking out against this whole Gaza thing are Marjorie Taylor Greene and some like that's a problem, y'all. Like if
That's
if
a,
we if we don't have people like out there, like Democrats really speaking out against what Israel is doing and corporate Dems, like if we don't have our game plan ready and our progressive game plan going, and they come out of their hibernation and all they see is Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking out against what's happening, that's a problem. I mean, I've been seeing that all over the place. But anyway, sorry, that's a sideline that has been worrying me a little bit. All right, Bruce, before we get to you, I'm going to read another little paragraph here. So let's see here. Within this fog, leadership itself changes character. Under Project 2025, leaders are not expected to provide vision or consistency. They are expected to perform authority. Their power is measured not by competence, but by dominance. They deliver not coherent policy, but effective certainty. They speak with conviction even when their claims contradict evidence, law, or previous statements. This performance does not resolve confusion, it deepens it. But it also disciplines the public. It signals that clarity is no longer expected, that submission rather than understanding is the appropriate response to authority. We are all being trained. I want you to get that and like just think about that. We have been being trained since 2015. Fake news.
Mhm.
So, Bill, or sorry, not Bill, Bruce, you're up next.
Well, sorry, I don't feel like a dog having
I
been
know.
trained. But couple of things even fits in with what you just read. The changing of character and performance of authority and power by domination. Trump's speech. He also went after the Supreme Court justices really badly and totally inappropriate. It's one thing to say you don't agree with the decision. I mean, let's face it, we've called the Supreme Court the MAGA court, but that's not what he did. He actually talked about the families of the two that he appointed would be embarrassed by what they did with this decision. And he attacked them personally. And it's being considered that his State of the Union, when they're sitting in front of him in the front row, he may continue doing this. This is a madman
Yeah.
who is doing this, and he's trying to show that he's dominating, and he's speaking with conviction about what he's talking about, but it's really totally inappropriate, and he's trying to disgrace the court basically as a third branch. As far as Robert Reich goes, I was going to bring up his one of his articles within the last couple of days since the decision came out. He was hopeful and thought also that there were wins here, but he's concerned that things are going to get worse before they get better. And a lot of what he's talking about is what's going on with ICE and all these facilities they have and how they're spreading out all over. But he talked about a lot of things in that article. I actually have it pulled for Monday. And as far as what Christine said about Congress, well, this Congress, they're afraid of them. It's the Republicans who are in control and they don't want to do anything to cross him. And yes, they've started to show a little bit of spine on a few votes recently, but for the most part, Trump wants it, Trump gets it, because otherwise he'll talk out against you. The MAGA crowd, there have been death threats and so forth, as well as he'll primary you. In fact, one of the reps who he originally was going to endorse, he decided not to because they voted against something he wanted, and now Trump has endorsed the other person in the primary. So and basically, Constance, I agree with what you said. It is a win, but it's a short-lived one, and hopefully we get some further wins, but don't expect it necessarily from this Supreme Court.
Well, I hope it. We got to do something about the Supreme Court. I think term limits are our best bet because even expanding the court, they could always just add more conservative justices. So term limits, I think, are probably the best way to keep it on a good. Anyway.
But I don't think it'll affect who's there now, and I think it would take a constitutional amendment.
Yes, I think both. I agree with both of the statements you just made. I agree. Carolyn, Miss Carolyn, you are up next.
I just wanted to say something about what Constance said. Oh, I'm from Ann Arbor, Michigan. When she said he was a lunatic and he was doing this and he was doing that, and I just heard one podcast that said he went through all 5 stages of grief in one speech.
Okay. I can, that's funny. And unfortunately, probably true.
And sad.
And very sad.
But that's all I wanted to say. So I'm a little behind in the conversation, but
yeah.
That's all right, Carolyn. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. Constance, you're back up.
Well, good to know there's an Ann Arborite on the call. I went to the University of Michigan twice, and And I have a fond place in my heart for Ann Arbor, always in my life. But anyway, I think it was actually Jen Psaki. It might have been on Jen Psaki's show that she went through the stages of grief with Trump, and it was very, very well done. Um, in terms of what Bruce said, I agree that we shouldn't look to this case as more than this case, although the Supreme Court justices pulled the rug out from underneath a favorite tactic of Trump, which is to claim emergency powers. And they said there are no emergencies here.
Right.
So I took that as a good sign, and I'm hoping, that they continue thinking along those lines. Um, and I think he also, I mean, how stupid can you be to insult members of the Supreme Court whose decisions are going to affect your success as president, your ability to do things as president. I mean, it just shows a lack of control. He's
Nobody
all
cares.
impulse, all id, all gut instinct. And I think it's this. I think it's a sign. I think more there's a big ripple that came out of the Supreme Court's decision and his reaction to it. I think it's just going to get wider and wider. I
Wow.
hope. I hope.
From your mouth to universe's ears. Yes.
Especially in terms of public perception of this lunatic.
Mm-hmm. All right, Miss Susan, you are up next. Can you? Oh, I'll try. Does that help? Can you unmute? Miss Susan, are you there? Okay, I'm going to go to Joe and I'll come back to you. I'll keep your hand up.
I got it.
Oh,
I
you
got
got it.
Yay. All right. Susan from Metairie, Louisiana.
Yes, thank you.
All right. And I want to congratulate you for getting this far with this.
Yeah.
I have a Mike Johnson problem.
Don't we all, babe? Don't we all?
I don't know what I'm going to do for that. But I'm just really frustrated. And the whole thing is just maybe a crazy woman to this weekend. Anyway, I think Trump is suffering from gold toxicity. Have you read those symptoms? I think he's got it. Anyway, I'm going to lower my hand and say goodbye. That's my thing for the day.
Susan, I think actually some action items, we need to figure out what we can do in your end down in Louisiana that would bug Squeaker Johnson. Like, how can we be a bee in his bonnet? Like, what can we do? What can we do? What can you do? I'm because obviously I'm not in Louisiana, but does anybody have any ideas of what Susan and her friends and her crew down there in Louisiana could do to bug the bejesus out of Squeaker and his crew and all of down there? That would be awesome. If you could put any
Elect a
ideas.
Democratic House.
What
Elect a
was that?
Democratic House in November.
Well, other than that, I'm talking about right now. Like, have a protest at his office, like religiously, like once a week. Just have a crew of people. Sorry, Joe, you're next. But any ideas, put them in the chat for her, okay?
So I just wanted to add a little levity, if I may,
Please
to
do.
this afternoon. Constance reminded me when she says she's been to Ann Arbor twice. I have 7-year-old twin grandsons who adore their aunt, my oldest daughter. And they asked her one day while she was driving in the car, Aunt Beth, have you gone to college? And since she's got her bachelor's, her master's, her doctorate, she's got certificates of advanced study, she answers with, yes. I went to the University of Scranton. I went to the University of Fordham. I went to Stony Brook University. I went to St. George, and my grandsons stop her and say, Aunt Beth, You have proved to us if at once you don't succeed, try again.
Oh, the kids are just way too witty nowadays, y'all. I tell you. Whew.
Funny.
That was good. Okay. Whew. Thank you, Joe. I needed that. All right, Melissa, I'm gonna read after you real quick. Go ahead.
Okay. I just had an idea for Susan in terms of being in Metairie, and maybe he's your representative, Johnson. Gorsuch made quite a statement, a concurring statement, in which he challenges Congress to step up. And it's very articulate, it's very specific, it's very well phrased. And I think you can take phrase after phrase of that and, call the media about it and call up, put it in, write article letters to the editor and say, what about this? Because he's saying Congress needs to step up. I think Johnson's already come out and said, oh, no, the president is good. No, no, so I think he's already, but I think you can still hit him with that because it's a really soft club. Really, it was a beautiful, beautiful statement. And from a guy who was ultra conservative and was appointed by Trump the first time around. So pretty amazing. But I do wonder what's going to happen if Gorsuch's vision is going to come to pass and Congress will step up, or if we're going to just see, what's his name, 47, just, run roughshod over the Supreme Court now as he has with Congress. So we're at another turning point, shall we say.
I think we are. All
Hate to
right,
use that
Donna.
expression, but there we go. Hey,
Real-
thanks.
All right, Donna, real quick, I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs before we get to you. So don't forget what you're going to say. All right. All right. So on Thursday, we had a bit of a conversation about this part, how confusion keeps power safe. Power thrives in darkness, but in democracy, where transparency is a stated virtue and accountability is a foundational principle, the powerful cannot rely on secrecy alone. They require another mechanism, one more compatible with the appearance of openness. That mechanism is confusion. Confusion is not the absence of information. It is the overproduction of fragmented, contradictory, and destabilizing information, designed not to conceal the truth, but to make it inaccessible. Project 2025 understands this well. It does not simply operate in an environment of confusion, it cultivates one, because confusion is the most effective way to neutralize dissent when preserving the illusion of legitimacy. At its core, confusion protects power by disrupting the chain of understanding that connects cause to consequence. When citizens cannot identify who is responsible for a policy, cannot interpret the meaning of legislation, and cannot evaluate the credibility of public statements, they lose the ability to assign blame or demand change. This epistemic paralysis is not accidental, it is engineered. Bureaucratic language is made deliberately opaque. Government websites are disorganized or incomplete. Press briefings contradict previous announcements. Figures in authority change narratives midstream. In such a system, clarity becomes not just rare, it becomes radical. And this is what we were talking about before, about how they are attempting to confuse the system of how we get our news, how we get the truth. They are fragmenting that and causing it to be dang near impossible for all of us to get. And Bruce and somebody's asked, well, what are people confused about? Well, not everybody's getting the same information. Not everybody is getting the same news, and not everybody has a Bruce to explain the legal, the legalese and the legal ramifications. And so they a lot of times just give up. All right, Donna, sorry about that. You're up next. Ooh, you can unmute yourself, babe. There you go.
That was fine. Can I step on your toes and do a self-care tip since I'm watching Robin in pain right now?
Yes.
Robin and Debbie especially, you are using bifocals looking at your computer, so you're yanking your head back to use the lower part of your glasses, that your doctor can give you computer distance prescriptions so that you don't have to do this thing with your neck. You just tell your doctor, I need computer distance. And you kind of hold out your arm, and he'll give you prescription lenses that are perfect for your computer distance. And you won't be doing this. Debbie does it too. Just a self-care tip.
Donna, self-care is not only welcomed here, it is a founding principle. So anytime you want to speak up about self-care, you go ahead. And thank you for that. I too have bifocals, and on occasion,
You can get a computer prescription and you won't have that trouble.
thank
Just
you.
wanted to let everybody know.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, Bruce, you're up next.
Yeah, thank you for the compliment, but I don't know I clarify much all the time
Thank you for
or
your
even
humility.
frequently,
I
but
appreciate
there
it.
are plenty of people here who do, and we all contribute, and we all use our backgrounds and our training. Well, I don't want to use the word training, our backgrounds basically to put our perspective on things. And I have to admit, though, that this administration, do you know how much legal stuff there's been? I mean, court suit after court suit, executive order after executive order, and all sorts of things. There has been a lot of legalese, but I got a kick out of what you just read about press briefings, because Carolyn Levitt really fits into that. She says something one day and you realize it's not accurate. It's a lie. And she is creating confusion by the way she does her press briefings. At the very first time I saw her, I thought, geez, she's so confident. She's doing a great job. I only felt that way the first time. And after that, yeah, she remains confident, but my goodness, what she has to say, it's confusion, it's disinformation. And, this is, and she does contradict herself, and sometimes it's not even the same thing that the president is saying. So this is what keeps people from learning the truth. But you got to look at other sources, and I think a lot of us here look at other sources, and we have a good idea what the truth is.
Yeah. I muted myself. My daughter came home from work. All right. I agree. And this is why we say don't stop talking to people. Don't stop talking to your neighbors. Don't stop talking to the strangers that you meet, because you never know where they're getting their news sources or if they're getting news sources. You don't know what people don't know. And it's more important than ever right now just to have casual conversations about things that are affecting our daily lives. And these things are affecting our daily lives like crazy. So, what are some action items? Like, what can we do, y'all? How can we combat this confusion? How can we come at it? This is the heart of this. We need to, I mean, I posted a lot of them on Thursday, and I'll do the same today. But I'd like for us to also just talk. Oh, never mind. Laura's going to take care of that for me.
Yep,
And
I've
but
been posting them.
oh, good, wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you, Laura. But I'd like to talk about them too. All right, Bruce, you're up. Unmute.
One thing that comes to mind immediately is there's a lot of Substack independent news sources, and a lot of those are very educational and they tell it like it is. At least I think so. People on the right may not think so, although they may have their own Substacks. I don't know because I don't read them. But you got to keep yourself educated and informed about what's going on and know the sources that you're getting the information from. So that's one thing you can do. And then spread the word, put it on social media, put it on, talk about it. Even I think Constance says she does letters to the editor. That's great. That's a way of doing it. And educating people and having the information from truthful sources is important.
All right, great. And we are compiling a really good list of left leaning, and I say left leaning, but I hope y'all understand that in America and United States of America, left leaning is center. Like, we don't have a true left leaning party. So, anyway, I say that in that we're trying to combat the extreme right independent media. So we have a long list of progressive media we're trying to build up. We have that available on our Discord. I know. I'm just not sure if we have it anywhere else right at the moment, but I'll get back to you on that. All right, Constance, you're up next. Oh, you need to unmute.
So as a former teacher, one of the key strategies we learned that's important to both communication and truth is modeling. And in other words, we show others what we want to get back from others, right? So I think, what we can do ourselves is make sure that we don't talk in generalities, or that we don't know who we're quoting when we're quoting someone, and that we should mention who we're quoting, And then in a conversation with others, if they, spout platitudes or something, you could ask, not confrontationally, but in the spirit of wanting to know where they're getting their information so you could check it out. Ask them to tell you where that information is coming from. So it both puts them on, it makes them understand that other people are not just accepting things that somebody says for this, sake of saying it, but we're all sort of, trying to be factual. And I think, it would challenge maybe some people to be more factual, because they know that, well, they've seen how that works. You're showing them how it works, for one thing, and then you're acknowledging, or want to acknowledge, their ability to do the same thing. So that's one idea.
All right, thank you. All right, Joe, you are back up. Unmute, please.
So another idea might be Indivisible, Illinois is running a series. They used to call it Truth Brigade, and it's now called No Lies Lab. And what they're doing is, I believe it's once a week. They are pulling together a group of people, and we write posts for Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram, X, etc., which take the misinformation, point it out, and layer it with the truth, so that people can understand better the misinformation that's out there. I think, quite frankly, we should be using the same tactic to get the truth out as the Trump administration is using to get falsehoods out. We should flood the zone. We should make sure that our message is at every social media outlet that we have an opportunity to get to.
I agree.
So, but the difference is that we'll be telling the truth.
I agree. Thank you. That's a great idea. the social stormings have a great effect because we don't just like it's exponential. When we share each other's. So everybody is sharing each other's messages and they get put out exponentially. It's very cool what happens on Fridays. Yeah, they are doing a great job. And I know Dr. Chris is a part of that. Although I did find out that Dr. Chris is in acute care right now. And because
What?
she fell. And so she's okay. But I think self-care is important for all of us. And some of us have been really pushing hard.
She's on the
Dr.
call
Chris.
from acute care.
No, she's
Actually,
here.
this is Chris. I'm out of acute care. I just got out.
See?
So I have so I fell while I was block walking. I missed a step. So anyway, so I have steroids in a sling for a while. So
Oh,
I'm
so
good.
sorry.
I'm good.
I'm glad you're
Yeah.
okay. I really am. I want you to rest. You deserve to rest. So just please rest tonight. Please. Snuggle with your puppies. All right, Dr. Melissa, you're up next.
Hi, I appreciate what the last sort of suggestions. I'll flood the zone, but along those lines, not so much flooding the zone, but I think we talked about last time taking an angle into this, because if your fruit zone is flooded and you're getting all these little minute pieces of information, you go, yeah, but you try to catch each one and you try to answer it, and then another one comes at you and people can't follow all that. So I really love both what Rio Khan is doing. I mentioned this on Thursday, but there's other examples now. Like with the Epstein, people are coming out with all these different things, and he goes, Epstein, because it really confronts the major issues. It goes to a higher level with this, what's going on. The other thing is that I saw James Tallarico with Lauren Boebert on, did you
I saw
see
that
that?
too.
Did you see that? It was at the after time of Bill Maher. And he was really good. He got her to agree with him in 2 seconds because he went to another level. It was about, why shouldn't people post the Ten Commandments? And she's like, oh, religion, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, completely other level, completely nonlinear, came at it and cut right through it with a set of values and concepts and bing, bing. And she was like, oh, yeah, that's true. It's like, so that is what we need to do. We need to go up a level, change the narrative.
I
And
hear
that
that.
takes a
I
lot
hear
of
that.
brilliance, and also just the straight out, what we're doing with Kelly and Vision Forward also.
Yeah, and I'll read this last paragraph here. The final and perhaps most profound way confusion keeps power safe is by undermining imagination. When the systems that govern our lives become unintelligible, it becomes harder to imagine alternatives. If we cannot explain how we arrived at the present, we cannot envision how we might construct a different future. Confusion thus becomes a kind of cage, not one made of force, but of disorientation. It teaches people not to ask why, not to expect clarity, not to believe that things can be otherwise. And if you have ever read a science fiction novel, y'all, we are there. We are in the beginning chapters right now. Like we're setting up the scene for the revolution. And that because that's what they're doing. That's what they've been doing. And I feel it. I feel that we are coming to a time where this Epstein class, that's not going away. The world's not going to let it go away. The masks are ripped off completely. And if we don't do anything about it here, the world will reflect that. And we will never get our reputation back. Susan, Miss Susan, unmute, please.
Unmute.
There.
Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Did I make it?
Yes, you did.
All right, thank you. Okay, I've given this a lot of thought. I can't vote anything for or against Mike Johnson, but I can voice my opinion because he is voicing for the whole of the House of Representatives, and the man is wrong. And I don't know how you go about impeaching somebody who does not follow his oath of office, but I think it should be done. And if we can't do it for number 47, we ought to definitely do it for these fools that are out there ripping around.
Well, Miss Susan, you should look into that and tell us what you come up with because I'm not
I've been
sure.
trying to figure it out, and it's killing me. I'm so.
I know, honey. I know. I'm sorry. I
Oh,
can't imagine.
a lighter note, my sister says the island out in the Potomac is still floating, honey, and smelling to high heaven.
That is okay. Under normal circumstances, I would not be joyous of a poop island out in the middle of the Potomac. But in the middle of this regime, anything that will cause his birthday bash to be poopy, I'm all for that.
Just find it amusing.
All right, Missouri, you're up next.
Well, unmute. I can't figure the unmute.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, Ori Pennick from Chicago, used to be retired civil rights attorney. I think what is amazing, and I think, and Bruce and you, some of you teachers know this, the history we were allowed to learn, and let's be real, we were not allowed to learn all history, which is why Black History Month and Women's History Month and Indigenous people, all of that, and they want to eliminate that. But at least minimally, the history we learned led us to believe that a democracy was structurally empowered and not at the whim of a minor, they're not the majority, a minority piece of our country. Right now, the wealthy, the multi-wealthy, have bought out the structure of our democracy. And, being trained about constitutional law and the Constitution, blah, blah, blah. All of what that training prepared me for anyway. And I did take, I got involved. I'm younger than the civil rights movement, but toward the late 60s and the 70s, I was able to get engaged in it, and the women's movement. But all of that was done with the understanding that we could impact the injustices of this country nonviolently, and we could do it in a way that would move this country progressively forward. Well, all of that is being structurally not only denied, but taken away. And it's hard for me, and was a mentor to several students, law students, women who wanted to become civil rights attorneys. And many of them have said, and I think you have heard me say this, why should they spend their time and energy and money studying to be a civil rights lawyer when civil rights in this country doesn't matter? The courts and the law that support that doesn't matter. And with the elimination of the Affirmative Action and Voting Rights Act and Roe v. Wade, I can't argue against that. What is problematic now, and that's why you guys see me on so many Indivisibles, I can say to many of them women and men of color, that there are people across this country that don't look like us, that understand what is going through. They have not experienced what we have experienced, but they understand that experience and they support us moving forward. What we have to do now is continue to encourage, and I live in Chicago, look, don't get me started, because, as I said, Dr. King came here for a reason, and it wasn't to enjoy the weather.
Right.
And Marquette Park proved that. So, the things that we have experienced, they want to take away from public education. That's why they want to stop teachers. I just found out that the Smithsonian, which I'm going to stop supporting, just removed a piece of an exhibit that had to do with Black women falsely incarcerated. They withdrew it because the Trump administration said, if you don't, we will withdraw funds. So too bad for them because I'm not going to continue to support them. But bending over and bowing down to this fascism, let's call it what it is, has got to be stopped on every level. And you are doing it. You're doing it nationwide. And, even people from other parts of the world are calling. But we have to sustain and get younger people who often feel ignored to understand that they are not ignored. They're very much a part of it. And I tell my daughters who ain't that young, that, I'm doing it for them so they can stand on my shoulders, and they need to have younger people standing on their shoulders. And I'm done.
That was wonderful. Apologies for Ruby, who just decided to come in and bother me through that whole
Stand
thing.
on your shoulders.
I know, apparently.
She heard me.
But I hear you, and our most recent nationwide youth protests, youth walkouts really gave me a lot of, it made me think, y'all, what are we doing? Are we going to high schools and just like talking to them and being like, hey, we have, do we have a student group
Like the SCLC? I mean, the SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. That was one of the major pieces of the civil rights movement. We need
what I meant
that.
what I was thinking, what I meant was within the Indivisible, because if we have it within Indivisible, I don't know about it, which is bad, right? So I need to figure that out. We just started a student Indivisible, a student at EIU. And so I'm wondering, should we start like outreach groups of Indivisible as student groups to counter TPUSA? Like, is that something that we should maybe try to start?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. Let's do that. All right. Bruce, you're up next.
Okay. Ori, I couldn't agree with you more. What you said is how I feel also. Yesterday, I actually attended a rally, and what was the theme? The signs of fascism, fighting fascism. I even had a sign about that to resist it. But what they did was they had people march with different signs, and I actually gave a Zoom speech on how we're turning into a fascist society. And step by step, what fascism is, or authoritarianism, or dictatorship, whatever you want to call it, that's what it is. That's where he wants to take us. And hopefully we don't get there, and we got to continue to resist, and people keep encouraging us to resist. And yes, they are dismantling what was there. We were making good progress through the 60s and 70s anyway, in civil rights areas and other civil liberties. The courts were upholding it as well. And that's what I learned in college and in beginning of law school. And basically, that's where we thought that this would be the direction the country would continue to go in. And look what's happened. We saw some appointments to the courts. Let's face it, on political issues, who appointed you can be very significant. It's not always, but it can be very significant as to how they're going to rule. And it's the last several years they've been chipping away at rights here and there. I hope the Supreme Court doesn't chip any further on that Voting Rights Act, but they've already chipped at Section 5 and now Section 2 with discrimination in terms of redistricting. They chip away at that. I mean, it's going to be horrible. And even the rights to vote. Trump has said with the Save America Act, he has stated that if it passes, he'll be so happy because the Republicans will be in control for 50 years.
Yep.
And that's something that we got to continue to resist. And by the way, that's a call for everyone to tell your senators vote no, because they've been voting on it for a while. But the direction of this country, unfortunately, has switched. But We got to not get discouraged. We have to retain hope. Robert Reich has even stated that, look, after in the Gilded Age in the 1880s, came out with a progressive era. And that's what we've got to hope for here, but we got to help make it happen. And it's up to us as the public to do it. Right now, we can't rely on Congress. Hopefully, with the new Congress and the Democrats gaining control, hopefully, there'll be some accountability. There'll be a lot of accountability going on for this current administration. But, we don't, and I'm going to be covering some of this in my talk on Tuesday evening as to some of the things that we should do, because we can't let this happen again.
Right.
For
And
the
I want to
future.
say, accountability not just for this regime, y'all. This is going to ripple throughout the Democrats too. We have learned our lesson. We are not going to elect people who don't fight for the people. Like, I doubt that there are going to be corporate Dems elected in the near future. Like, people who take APAC money, people are actually really doing the research now. They're really paying attention because of the situation we find ourselves in right now. And I'm not saying all people are doing their research. I'm saying I see more and more people online right now saying, I never really had to worry about this stuff before, but the state of the world today, this is where I find myself. And I'm like, yeah, thank you. Thank you for not worrying about it until we get here. Because it's like the other side have said, we've given you your women's rights. We've given you your gay rights. We gave you a Bergefeld. We gave you all of this. And you know what? We're tired of it. We're going to take it all back. That's what it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot more of us than there are of them. And I just don't see that as being something that can go forward. Constance, you're up next.
Yes, I just want to say an amen to what Ori said about her fear of the billionaire Epstein class, if you will. I had just finished a piece for Substack. It's not published yet, but on this Russian emigre, young woman whose husband has been taken to a detention center in El Paso called Montana East. He was picked up in November. It's now late February, and he won't see his hearing until late April. So, but in the course of researching it, it occurred to me just how much, I mean, this couple is having to, first of all, their income has been reduced more than half because he isn't working. She was fired from her job as a Russian teacher at a school because a mother complained her husband was in jail. And so she's driving Ubers and DoorDashes and all sorts of things. But in doing it, so my theory of the case is Trump and his donor friends are making billions upon billions from this scheme, whereas the people who are being impacted of it are transferring their wealth basically to these billionaires, as are the taxpayers, because we're paying for all these things, and they have to pay the prison system when they make phone calls. They have to pay for $20,000 for a bond, if he's released. They have to pay attorney's fees and so on. So, who's making money? Not us. And the poor immigrants who are affected, again, they don't have wealth to begin with, and what they have is being transferred upward to this billionaire class. It's sickening.
Yeah, I remember the largest transfer of wealth in our history. Do you remember them saying that over
Yes,
and
yeah,
over
the
again?
big beautiful bill.
Yeah. And
The big
they meant
billionaire
it.
bill. The big billionaire Freudian slip.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
they
As
definitely meant it. Dr.
Yeah, and
Melissa.
it's happening. It's in the works. It's doing its stuff. So, yeah, that is a big obstacle in our way as a democracy, and it's a big objective for when and if and when, I think when we stop this madness and elect a Democratic Congress and a Democratic president for 20 years.
Yeah.
Let's go
The
for 20 years.
pendulum
Yeah.
swing on this, I hope, will
Yeah.
be pretty long. I hope.
Yeah.
I hope,
I
I
hope
hope,
so
I hope.
too.
Dr. Melissa, you're up next.
Yeah.
On the topic of pendulum swing and what everyone's talking about with money in politics, money being crushed towards the upward into the upper echelons of money, all people who already have money. Um, I think when we think about the pendulum swing that's gone from progressive, as Bruce was saying, progressive to conservative, you think we're going more progressive, and suddenly it's the swings the other way. And you think it was a natural balancing act, but I don't think so, because if you think about what Cecilia said, she said what we're talking about as progressive now is actually centrist. I mean, Eisenhower would have seemed like a radical, and he was a pretty conservative Republican at that time. So I think what we're seeing is that it's the impact of money in politics is part of it, and then the whole Reagan era that squeezed the middle class and put
Mhm.
money in the hands of, I mean, the upper 1 to 3%. So
Mhm.
these are really what we need to take a look at,
Mhm.
because it's 'cause this is where people are kind of rebelling, thinking that someone like 47 is going to be their protector. He's going to make the price of eggs better. He's going to make the price of gas better. He's not going to do any of that. He's still feeding that top
Mhm.
3%, 2%. So I think we need to I don't know how to get real about that is a tricky thing. I think we won't get those swings in the same way, and we'll get swings towards different issues. But if we can get money out of politics, that would be great. I don't know how we do that, but we need to do that. Um, and
Yeah,
on the getting the use, go ahead, Cecilia.
I just think there's going to be a lot of restructuring after this. I think they're going to see the destruction of what has happened. Like if we can shine a light on what has truly happened, what they have really done, because just remember, Elon Musk had access to all of this stuff for how long? What there's so much stuff happened last year. We have forgotten a lot of it. We
Mhm.
we're going to find out a lot of things happened during the first year of this regime. We're going to find out a lot of things happened that we didn't know anything about. And I just have a feeling that the response to it is going to be radical, that there's going to be a radical, because Gen Z doesn't play.
Well, that's good. And because, I mean, that goes back to the Gen Z issue, which I was going to say, is 50501 or 5051, are they doing the turning point thing, but for progressive? I hope they are, because I think more 20 somethings are connected with 5051. Um, but I hope that, what you said about, I mean, we haven't seen the end of the effect of that, people taking our information, Doge, all of that. We haven't seen the end of that at all. That's going to still come back to bite us. And then there are all these, what was that about? Oh, people are going to look at, our Facebook postings or our social media postings if they're anti-eyes. I mean, there's just all kinds of things that we're still going to come back to bite us. But, what can we? Yeah, I think if we kind of stay strong on the what we want, and I also think, just going back to what you said earlier, Cecilia, reminding us about that we need to have a course of action for people who are survivors of sexual and physical abuse, especially, domestic abuse, but especially sexual abuse of children, and of women, and all of that. And we need to figure out how to carve that into because no one's been doing that. It's been kind of going under the radar for a long time. So, yeah.
It's so interesting that you say that. And y'all, we have like 20 minutes left of our normal time. And so here's the thing. I saw a wonderful post about how we are approaching the Epstein files, and how we are all approaching it patriarchally. I can't say that word. as in, I want to kill those MFers. How dare they? Let's find them all. Let's kill them all. When what we should be doing is responding matriarchally, because that is still happening. Everything that is in those files is still happening. We should be coming together with the women and the children and finding them, surrounding them, and figuring out how to protect them first. Then, but
Yeah.
and there's more to it than what I just said, okay? Because
Yeah.
I just limited her entire thesis down to a very small piece. But I agree, like, okay, I agree that we need to get the MFers, y'all, but we're kind of missing the point of all this is still happening. Like, this has been going on since the beginning of the creation of our colonialist system, and it is still, probably before that,
Right.
and it is still going on.
Right. And we have to lift up the survivors and protect them still.
Yeah.
And also there's a lot of power behind those. Some of it might be the mob, some of it is, the church, some of it is some other organizations that are just businesses
Yeah.
that supply, and they're out there, and that they're secret, they're secret. I mean, Epstein is the big one, right? But he's not alone. And so how do we take that down? Oh yeah. So
But yeah,
take,
I hear you. All
All
right,
right, thank you.
Dr. Chris, are you driving?
I'm actually parked at the pharmacy, so I am not
Okay.
driving. So, hey, but I was thinking about what both Bruce and Ori said, and specifically, for the young people that were coming to Ari and saying, I'm wondering about whether or not it's worthwhile even having a career in civil rights and, being a lawyer in that area. And I would say my answer to them, and hopefully you both as lawyers can communicate this, is that absolutely it's needed now more than it ever has been needed, right? Because we were making such important strides in the right direction, slow, steady, but we can't give up. And I am of the belief, along with Heather Cox Richardson, I think a couple other people think the same way, is that we are going to turn this around and enter a much more progressive and maybe even aggressive approach. Like, in other words, forget all this, oh, we're going to work slowly across the table and blah, blah, blah. No, we need to move with great speed because, one, we have a lot of damage to repair. In other words, just to get us to where we were before they started dismantling rights. So we just got to move aggressively. I think the one thing for me, as someone, I was a pre-law major when I was at Notre Dame and then ended up going a different direction, but did a lot of one thing that became obvious to me is the gaps in the Constitution, meaning we have some notable things that have got to be resolved and can only be resolved by law. And so that's got to be part of that very aggressive plan once we regain power. So we can't ever allow gaps like that to potentially, eliminate our rights and our freedoms, et cetera. And the other thing I would say is that I'm seeing crossover in some areas. Like, if you go into libertarian spaces and you even go into some traditional conservative spaces, people do not want to lose their rights. People still want us to be a constitutional republic. So we're not at the point where most people, it's a very small number of people that want us to be an autocratic, it's the oligarchs, right? It's the ones that will benefit from us being, an authoritarian government. But the majority of Americans, whether you're right leaning or left leaning, don't want that. And the last thing I'll say is, I realize we can't all do everything, but if you have any extra change, any extra money, always contribute to the ACLU because they have been keeping up the good fight. And we just can't, I can't even imagine what we would do without the ACLU and all the things that they have managed, from the immigrants' rights to, like even with me being pepper sprayed at Dilley, I'm working through the ACLU to file my case, so anyway, that's all I'll say. Keep up, be hopeful, The fight's not over. The momentum is going. And man, if you could see the numbers that we're seeing in Texas in terms of the Dems to the Republicans that are voting, blue wave, blue wave. That's all I can say. All right.
And I will tell you, they are scared of Texas right now. Like the money that they are pouring into Texas, the fact that they pulled in Brendan Carr to come in and hush up James Tallarico, y'all, they are frightened of what is happening down in Texas. And if you don't know, Dr. Chris is on usually Monday through Friday on Coffee and Conversation in the mornings, telling us all about what she's doing down there. And other people, we have a lot of other people that live down in Texas that tell us and keep us updated. Oh my gosh, I am so stoked about the fire that they have, the passion, because their biggest issue is getting people to vote. It's not that they have a lot of more Republicans than Dems. It's that they have lazy Dems. And that's the thing. I wanted to say, it's not just the oligarchs that want this to happen, y'all. It's people who are lazy, who don't want to make decisions, who don't want to make decisions for their own lives, who think it's easier just to give that decision over to the government or to a billionaire because they're smarter than me, right? They've made billions of dollars, so they must be smart.
Yeah, and Cecilia, the other thing, just to add to what you said, it's not always just being lazy. It's just that the system in Texas is rigged to work against the people who are working class. So they
Right.
make it really, really hard to, get registered to vote, to have access to voting, to, we don't have same day registrations. It's super, super restrictive here. And so sometimes people just get overwhelmed, and they've been conditioned to believe that we're a red state. They hear people say, oh, well, what does it matter anyway? We're a red state. So when we did our voter guide this year, we said, actually, we're not a red state. We're a blue state, meaning we have more blue registered people than red. We just don't always show up to vote. We've got to show up to vote. And I've just been so happy to see the numbers come out this year. So we're trending well.
I apologize for the word. That's the word we use here in a blue state, I suppose. And I apologize. You are correct. The submission, the voter suppression is dark, and it's not just in red states. It's in blue states too. So anyway, so Constance, you are up next.
Me again. So I thought I was very interested in what Chris said, and I'm so pleased as to what's going on in Texas, like a real bright spot. But I want to get back to this big money thing. An example of big money energy that I came across recently, again while doing this article on all the detention centers that are being built and who's building them and who's behind them. And there are two big companies, Core Civic and GeoCorp, that are building these centers and managing these centers and making money from these centers. So it was reported that Core Civic, which owns about half of the detention centers, saw their stock soar not on election day or the day after the election, but the day before the election. And as you remember, most pollsters were calling the election a toss-up, basically. So why would all of these people be so assured that Trump was going to win by buying this stock? So I found that, and I don't have the answer for that. I have some, conspiracy theories, perhaps. I haven't ever considered myself a conspiracy theorist, but one does have to wonder about things when you see them. So, what was it that made Wall Street believe that Civic Core was the stock to buy before even the votes were counted the next day? I just leave that as a question on the table. If I find out the answer, I will let you all know.
I look forward to hopefully you finding out the answer.
Yeah, right.
All right, thank you. And Ori, I haven't. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I need you to unmute first.
I think you know this, Cecilia. I'm going to thank you for your apology because I was about to come after you. Because again, in many parts of blue, but particularly red southern states, they are encouraged to believe that their votes don't matter.
Right.
And in some ways, they're right. And they're encouraged, many of them are frightened to vote because in parts of Alabama, they put out lynch ropes. Now, they did this when Obama was president, but now they have lynch ropes right in front of the voting place, polling place. And it's a gesture, but it's not a gesture. Because again, people died there trying to vote. And I'm born and raised in Chicago. Never left, well, I left town because I lived in Lake County. But when my mother went to vote, when I was a girl, I was a teenager, and that was when Master Daley was the mayor, a Democrat. The police would stand in front of the polling places where we lived in Inglewood, the white police, put their hands on their guns and asked my mother when she was walking with me, nigga, bitch, who you gonna vote for? If she did not say the right name, they would not let her in. And so, and again, we learned this through organizing. And quite frankly, my white Lutheran minister was one of those that helped to organize that. Said, well, tell them the name you want, they want you to say.
Exactly.
And they did, and they went in. But if you said, I don't know, they would follow behind you, the police would, and take your hand, take the voter's hand and mark what they, so again, and there are people on Inglewood in particular, whose great-grandparents and grandmothers lived through all that.
Right.
So when you say, it's a discouraged population, primarily lower income, less educated, and quite honestly, more frustrated with the way in which democracy has not worked for them to their advantage anyway. But now it's like, well, why bother? What's going to change? If I was living low income, under Obama, which many of them were, what is my vote now going to change from my life? So again, we are at a time where we need to recognize, and we need to recognize that there are distinct differences. And believe me, Project 2025 knows all this.
Yeah.
They have taken advantage of what has been known and to structurally do what we would have thought would not have been done legally, because they know what the experience has been in this country of lower income people of color. And those are the areas where they are doing the most damage. So,
and you know what else? They know that white people are embarrassed about racism, and they know that we are embarrassed to talk about it, and they know that we would rather stand back and prop up a racist system or allow a system to continue, going on than speak out against it, because we're afraid of being attacked by the other side, or we're afraid that we don't know what to say, or we're afraid. And here, the problem with all of that is the courage of our convictions is stronger than guys, they don't have half of our conviction. They don't have half of our courage. They don't have half of first of all, they don't have any of our integrity. And knowing all of that, knowing where we stand and that we are on the right side of history, we should have no fear. We should have zero fear. And when I say we white people. We white people should have zero fear of speaking up. Now, does that mean
wait,
that
before wait. And I appreciate everything you just said. But what just happened in Minneapolis to white people, let's be real, we're all in this together.
right?
I will end with this. I didn't realize till I went to and I encourage everybody to do the civil rights tour in Alabama. The freedom riders, the white young people, many of them Jewish, who were on those buses from Highland Park, from Lake. I didn't know this till I went down, and they have pictures of them. Young and SNCC. I knew there were white young people, primarily white young men involved in student nonviolent. I didn't know about the freedom riders. So, Cecilia, there have been people, white people, and who've given their life for the liberty of civil rights, and we need to respect that as well. So all white people are not afraid of history. Those that are fearful have been trained to be fearful of it. So we need to acknowledge that. There are many in this audience who have stood up for the rights of Black people and people of color and women. And, we need to reflect that as well, because as long as we think one group is more guilty than the other, then as far as I'm concerned, given, the Native American culture, Black people would be guilty of ignoring Native American culture, other than Jean-Baptiste Bointé du Sable, who married a woman from the Potawatomi tribe. But, I'm just saying to you, we are one. And yes, there were white extremists. And when you look at Uncle Clarence Thomas, who's Black as dirt and as conservative as, race, and gender don't define humanity. So
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. That's correct. And yeah, I hear that. I hear that. Thank you very much. Dr. Melissa, you are up next.
Thank you, Ori. I appreciate your confidence in our fellow human beings. So I hope that's all justified, and I appreciate it. So yeah, I think I've almost forgotten what I was going to say because I was really moved by that. Yeah, I do think that I thought that when Cecilia, when you said about people being lazy, I was thinking not about the voting public, but I was thinking about people who might be in public office who might be either afraid to speak out or because the money in politics affects them too.
Yeah.
And so this is if we get that out of politics, we're going to have much more sincere people in those public offices. I think always mentioned it, Mayor Daley was a case in point. Boy, that was an ugly system. That was an ugly mob of people running Chicago. And I was in the Chicago area then, I think, for many years before I moved out to Massachusetts. So it was I mean, I'm glad that he moved on, and so that was
Yeah.
bizarre. Anyway, that's it. But yeah, get that money out, I guess, is still the thing, so that those people are not controlled by where do I get my money? I don't want to offend my donors, because even if you're sincere to a point, you're going to be afraid like if money is going to stop you from taking a stand.
Yeah. I hear that. Okay, Jeannie, I think we're going to end with you. We are at the end of our time together. We have another program on tonight. So, Jeannie, if you'd like to unmute, unless I saw another
we
couple of
have
hands.
gotten so far along. I think Candace had mentioned the um, the detention centers that the salt box project and the detention centers that are being purchased throughout the nation. And I don't know if anybody knows Texas Paul, but I had listened to Texas Paul, and he was talking about a little community in Georgia called Society Circle, and they have a 1 million square foot, um, warehouse.
Data center.
That a warehouse, just a empty warehouse where they would for a detention center. They empty warehouse that was just purchased, and usually a warehouse will sell for $25 to maybe 35. They sold this for $125 per square feet. Guess who got the $125 million was a Russian oligarch. And
Yeah, it's all a scam.
I thought that all of the monies were not, that they had been sanctioned, but he was the one that will get the money from our federal government. That's who's purchasing it, is our federal government. Our Christy Nome's group. That's who's purchasing it.
Lovely.
But the person that will get that money is a Russian oligarch.
Yeah, we're going to have to clean up all of that.
Yeah, that it was. I mean, I when I heard who had actually, who was getting the money, I was just so enraged. I just could hardly stand it.
It's all a racket. It's all set up to be a racket. Joe, you need to unmute.
Hi, guys. It's Joe from Williamson, South Carolina. I have a question. I was at a rally yesterday and speaking to my executive chair of the Anderson County Democratic Party. And I asked him why 169,000 fewer Black voters voted last year. And he said, because they didn't vote because they've had decades of lies and mistrust, and they won't vote. And we're probably not going to get their vote again. So,
not with that attitude.
As a precinct chair, my question is, how do I get that vote?
Okay. First of all, y'all need to start having conversations. Like, you need to have conversations with the community in order to understand where the community's at, because I don't know if he knows what he's talking about.
Well, he's Black. He's
okay.
Very
well then.
Well known in the community, yeah.
If he's well known in the community, ask him to set up conversations. That these conversations need to start happening. If the community truly feels that way, then we need to start talking about it. We need to figure out how we fix it.
I love that, a community forum. I love that, a meet and greet. I love it. But how do we get the Black people there? I want a Black person to answer that question.
You want me to be the there may be other Black people. You invite them in a way that it symbolizes that you mean you want them to trust you. Sometimes, and again, it happened here in Chicago under the Master Daily. Sometimes you go to their churches and you ask the ministers, can we invite you and attend the congregation? Don't just go, sit through it, whatever it is. And then say, Pastor, is it okay if I get up and ask and invite your congregation to join us for this meeting? It's very important that we hear your voice. We want your voice to be heard. And you may, any minister that says, yes, do it, you may ask them, would they come and open a meeting for you with a prayer or whatever? I mean, there are ways to look at a community and say, who are the most, not necessarily most respected, but the most visible? Sometimes it's the church, sometimes it's teachers. There are teachers in this group that can tell you, yes, or again, depending upon if it's a segregated area necessarily, which is not, there may be a principal of a school that would be willing to. You want the voice to be their voice, and you want them to know that you want them to come and that we want to invite you. And you don't want it to just all be Black people there. You want there to be white people there as well, because it's not just about them, it's about you, all of us. And you want to ask, what we want to do is address what your concerns are. We want to know what they are. We want to hear your voice. You don't want to preach to the choir. You want not to the choir. You don't want to preach to them. You want to say, we are inviting you so that we can learn what we need to learn to help you. What do we need to be doing better or differently? What would you like us to do? What would, and again, listing questions. Don't have answers yet, but these are the questions.
Inviting white people to listen to the answers and hear their answers. That's the whole point.
And that's what you want to say. We want to hear your answers to these questions. They're important to us, because when they say why, and we'll say, because it's important. And many of them say, well, why do you care now? We cared before. We may not have, and sadly, asked in the right way or did what we needed to do, but we're doing it now because we care. And a good example, and I know it's a sad one, but of the two people that gave their lives, white people who gave their lives in Minneapolis, if people can give their lives for the rights of, and I will tell you, many Black people, that's not just where you are, but feel that the issue of ICE and migrants outweighs the issue of the discrimination against Black people. But what you can say to encourage them is, as much as the people, and we should care about what ICE is doing to migrants, we care equally as much about what's happening to you.
Exactly.
Okay. That's very good. I'm writing so fast, my hands numb. Okay.
And for a second opinion, Ms. Sharon, please unmute.
I agree with everything Ari say, but one of the things, instead of having them come to you, ask them if you can come to them during their church service, their Wednesday night church service. Also, um, you want to bring food, okay?
Oh,
Some snacks, some food. Make it a social gathering. We're concerned. And if even if they're not interested, if they find out you having food, more than likely they'll come. Okay. But you
Have a
want
barbecue.
to yeah, well, it don't even have to be a barbecue.
Yeah, you
Like,
have some sweets.
Oh, okay, that's
you know, um,
I'm from Oklahoma. All I can think about is barbecue. Sorry.
okay. I mean, yeah, they'll love barbecue. Okay. But make it a social.
Mhm.
We're concerned about you. And just don't make it one time.
Right.
Okay.
oh,
Start doing it because we got to come together as a group anyway. So it shouldn't be just, I just want to hear what you want to say, but I want to get to know you as an individual.
Yes.
I
Yes.
want to get to know you as a group because, like you said, you don't understand what we're going through. I mean, you read about it and you talk about it, and but you don't know the lives we have lived. I mean, what you guys are going through now, we've been going through it a lifetime,
Exactly.
right.
Yep.
a lifetime, on the job, you know, in school. I went to a PWI school, predominantly white institute, University of Pittsburgh. I got B's when I felt like I should have gotten an A. But you was getting a B for being black. Okay.
Mhm.
So yeah, just make it a social outing, gathering, but not just a one-time thing. You got to, like you said, you got to develop that relationship, you know,
Yeah.
and I think that's something we need to do all over, really,
I
really.
Right.
agree.
Yeah. And I go to a white church, and when you wrote your letter, Cecilia, I didn't send your letter, but I wrote a letter to him. And I was kind of disappointed because he didn't respond. But I'm not done. I'm not done. I go to First Assembly of God. I'm not done. And I'm gonna be reaching out again. Okay. But yeah, you got a lot of
Sharon,
things to start with.
Have you had a meeting with your pastor? Have you talked to him face to face about this stuff?
No, I haven't.
I would. I would
Mhm.
consider it.
Mhm.
Just
I'm getting there. I'm doing a whole lot of other stuff, and I just need my mind clear.
I hear that.
You know
Okay.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Self-care,
do.
self-care, and I'm not done. I'm
I know.
not done.
I
Okay.
know. We're going to keep
I,
going on the boycotts and everything.
oh yeah, I just put something in the thing that if you haven't wrote your letter, please write your letter. It's just a matter. The template is there. It's just a matter mailing it off. Also, I put a summary of the project 2025 in the chat. I mean, show that to the Republicans. How can they argue with it? Because it's happening real time today.
Right.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank
Like I
Yeah,
said,
you.
thank you.
Much appreciated, all of y'all. All right, before I end this, I'm going to tell you that we do have another program coming up tonight. It is about Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the life of. It is called MLK, The Life of a Prophet. And it is a screening of a 30-minute film by writer and director Phil Portlock and his lovely wife, Pat Sloan. They are just an amazing couple. I love them so much. And they've lived this. And I know so many of you have. And I still, to this day, I love the fact that I can pick your brains and talked with you, and I have so much to learn from all of y'all. And so tonight, I ask if you have time at 7 p.m. Central, please do come back to this link and watch that movie and join in the discussion with us, because it's such a beautiful, beautiful it's such a beautiful movie and or short film, I guess. And the discussion is always fantastic with the two of them. So please do if you can. And today, y'all, this was excellent. This was just wonderful. I'm so thankful to each and every one of you, every single one who spoke, everyone who wrote in the chat. Y'all, you're amazing. You are what make Sorting Soup what it is, and I can't thank you enough. So do enjoy your the rest of your evening. We have coffee and conversation tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Central. And other than that, I will see you at Thursday at 5 p.m. and see you tonight at 7. All right. Bye, everybody.